I'm going to take this time to go ahead and teach Bill how to tie the Kate's turkey nip. This is the fly that we use on the Owyhee River primarily, but I've also used it successfully on rivers in Montana and also up in Washington State on Rocky Ford. What I'm using is the Camel, which is the Unithread. You'll see this is the color. It's a darker brown. But I'll go ahead and start by getting my thread on the hook. So I get it started here. I'll take and trim it off. I'm tying from this side, but you know what I'm doing here. Then the next thing I'm going to go ahead and put on is my tail. And for tail, I like to use lemon wood duck. And what I do is I take 3 Fibbits, 3 or 4, doesn't make any difference on that. The fish can't count. And I will go ahead and put them on, and I will make them approximately hook shank length. I lay it on the side, and then when I go ahead and bring the thread around, what it does, it pulls it up on top. And so I've got my tail in place. Then I'll go ahead and bring the thread up to the front of the fly. Once I'm up here, I can take and cut that, or I can be cool and just break it off. You'll see that this particular thread or the tail material is not very strong, so you can just basically snap it off. The next thing I'm going to put on is going to be copper wire, and I find that the one that works best is the Uniwire, and I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to cut it with the scissors, but if I cut it close enough in, it doesn't hurt the scissors. So I will go ahead and lay this to the side, and I will then tie it on, bring it all the way back to the bend of the hook. This is where I want it. Once I get it back to the bend of the hook, then I will go ahead and add my turkey. Now I use the cinnamon turkey, and typically what I do is I'll go ahead and take a couple of fibers of the turkey, and this stuff is very, very delicate, so when you're putting it on, you want to make sure you don't put too much pressure. You put it on very lightly. I'll go ahead and trim this off. There we go. I'll go ahead and lay it on. I'll run it a little bit longer because it gets very, very brittle towards the tips. So this will go ahead and ensure that I probably won't break it off. Once I get it to this particular point, I just go ahead and take my scissors, trim this off. I've got that. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take and bring the turkey forward. This is how I do that. Now, a trick that I've learned over the years, because I'm worried about putting too much pressure, is just to take a pair of hackle pliers, put that on, and then all I do is very lightly bring the hackle pliers around. There we go, we just snapped it off. That's the problem you have with this stuff. So, I'll go ahead and stop you for a minute. Now we'll continue on. So we've got our thread up to the eye of the hook. Now I'll go ahead and bring the turkey up. And again, holding it very lightly because this stuff is very delicate. I'll start wrapping around. Try to keep my fingers out of the way so you can see, but I just Bring them up side by side. This we use, if you were tying a pheasant tail, you'd be using pheasant for this, but we're kind of using the turkey in place of the pheasant. We find that probably get a little bit better delicate presentation. It moves better in the water. So once we're up here, then I'll go ahead and I'll tie it off. Got it tied off. We'll go ahead and snap the turkey off. Now I'll go ahead and take and counter rivet with the wire. The wire gives it some durability and also a little bit of weight. And I'll just go ahead and bring it up and give it a segmented look. So I've got the segmentation. Generally about 4 turns seems to be sufficient. I'll finish with the 5th here, and then I'll go ahead and tie it off with the thread. Okay, once I get it tied off with the thread, then we're going to go ahead and use the traditional way of breaking the wire off, and that would be helicoptering it. So I'll just go ahead and grab it here. I'll turn it around, and there we go. We've got it off. Now comes the next part, and this is something typically when I tie these flies, I actually tie with a Norvise. But since I know you probably don't have one, I'll go ahead and do it the old tried and true method. You go ahead and put the single plume of peacock on. Peacock's affectionately referred to as trout cocaine. Now what I will do is I'll go ahead and take and wrap this on around the thread. And what I'm doing when I wrap it around the thread is I'm going to go ahead and create a chenille for this peacock. Now this is what I'm using to go ahead and create my thorax. Once I have the thorax wrapped around, then I'll go ahead and wrap it in place. And I'll just go ahead and bring it. These do not have to be very big. You can see how it goes on here. It's very light. You'll want to put a little more thickness to it. Wrap back a little bit, but ultimately we're just going to go ahead and bring it up here. Once I get it up to about this point, I'll just go ahead and take my thread, take a couple turns, break off the rest of the peacock, get my thread, use the whip finisher, and let's see if I can do this like I teach the kids. 1, 2, 3, 4 should do it for this one. Take and tighten it, and voila, there we go. This is the Kate's turkey nymph. We'll see how you like it.